Welcome to another episode of Not That Hard to Homeschool, the podcast for real people so that you can confidently, competently, and yes, even contentedly provide the high school education that is best for your teens and your family. I'm your host, Lisa Nehring from NotThatHardToHomeschool.com. Well, hello, everybody. It is Lisa from It's Not That Hard to Homeschool podcast, and I am super excited to welcome a guest with us today for the podcast. This is Kristin Marais of the Discovery Institute. Kristin has roughly 15 years of educational experience spanning the traditional building classroom, online classroom, curriculum development, and tutoring. She graduated from the University of California Riverside with a BS in biochemistry and then completed an MS in teaching through Western Washington University. Kristin is a Washington State certified teacher with endorsements in chemistry, biology, and general science, and she has 10 years of teaching experience with public school districts. 7 of those were as an online instructor. She's passionate about chemistry as a subject, well-versed in online instruction, and dedicated to her students. Outside of teaching, Kristin spent 4.5 years in South Africa and founded a small nonprofit she continues to chair called FALSA, Free a Life South Africa, that sponsors addicts in Johannesburg through a 3-step program, including detox, rehab, and post-rehab. She also enjoys coffee, don't we all? Hiking, camping, traveling, and mentoring teens. I am so excited to have you with us here today, Kristin. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Lisa, thank you so much for hosting. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here.
It is great to have you. You are going to tell us about teaching chemistry online, and you are offering some exciting chemistry classes for students through Discovery Institute.
Yeah, that's right. So this is actually our first year offering the course, Lisa, and we are so excited at the way that this is shaped up. So I previously taught chemistry, but never with an integrated ID component to it. So that's new to me. And it was a unique challenge. And I think when we looked at this year, this was the first time we were going to offer a high school course. It is being offered through Discovery Institute, and the program is called Discovery Institute Academy. The course itself is the first and only course we're currently offering, and we do hope to build out other classes if we can get this going. But the chemistry course has just been such a cool first year experience. It hits on all the traditional, expected components that are fundamental to a chemistry class. And then where applicable, we've gone into the course and kind of tucked in some very cool ID perspectives and connections for students. For your listeners that might be new, when I use that terminology ID, I'm referring to the theory of intelligent design. And so just in case that too is new for your listeners, that is a scientific theory that essentially says that there are certain features in life and in the universe that are best explained by an intelligent cause or an intelligent agent. And so we seek to look for and identify aspects in the chemistry class that tie in with that scientific theory. And I guess maybe in case your listeners are wondering, what does this look like? What's entailed in an online chemistry course? And I don't want to jump ahead of you, Lisa. Did you want to ask another question?
I do want to ask a couple questions. I mean,
Yeah.
Wow, this is so great. But first of all, why the Discovery Institute and why are you starting with chemistry? Because I work with high schoolers around the world, and chemistry it's a hard class for a lot of students. You have to have algebra under your belt to really get it. And it's one of those, I think, for some parents and teachers and students, it's a deal breaker class because if you just can't get over the hump of stoichiometry and some other difficult concepts, you're kind of dead in the water. So it seems like almost kind of a rough class to start with. I'm curious how you decided to start with that class. And could you just back up and share what is the Discovery Institute for people? I think a lot of people aren't even sure what it is, and we'll post info in the show notes, but just tell us in your own words. You have such an amazing breadth of experience, and how did you land there?
Yeah, so Discovery Institute is a nonprofit think tank. They're based in Seattle, Washington. and they dabble in a lot of different areas. They're mostly known for their work in intelligent design, and they're a big think tank in that regard. They also deal with other areas, transportation related issues, education policy related issues. So they dabble in a lot of different areas. For myself, I'm actually married to somebody that is involved in Discovery Institute, but I think even before then, just their work in the theory of intelligent design was interesting and appealing to me. As far as why did we choose chemistry, that is a little bit of a funny story. I actually was supposed to, initially, I was kind of looking into starting with a biology course, which is what, most people like you're kind of suggesting would start with. But the truth is, Lisa, my passion is chemistry. Even this morning, I'm in the kitchen this morning testing out some different labs for kids and trying out different things. It's a subject that I have loved since I was a high school student myself. And I think I quickly found that if I was going to build a course for this online program, it needed to be the thing that I was most passionate about. And interestingly, like you said, I knew families felt chemistry was really intimidating, Lisa. I knew families would, find that course difficult. And so to me, that was another incentive to say, well, let me come alongside of you.
Yeah.
Why don't I put my passion in this area and my teaching experience from both the classroom and prior online years to work for you, and your families. So those are some of the big reasons that it ended up being chemistry first. Now there's hopes, like I said, we can roll out some other stuff, but that's where we started.
I love it. I do think having a teacher who is passionate about a subject area it is worth every penny to outsource there, because if it's not something that you have the bandwidth to teach yourself, absolutely pay the fee and have somebody like Kristin come alongside you and inspire your student. These difficult concepts and classes don't have to be boring for your kid if it was boring for you. You know what I mean? So I love that there's this option for our families.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, we're on the same page then.
Yeah. So tell us about intelligent design. I know it's a term that people are maybe a little bit familiar with, but let us know from your perspective, what does that mean and why is it important to consider, especially in a hard science like chemistry?
Yeah. So intelligent design, it's a scientific theory that says that there are features. I know I mentioned this earlier. It's good to reiterate it. There's features in life and in the universe that are best explained by an intelligent agent or an intelligent cause. And so basically, in a chemistry class, the ways that intelligent design get integrated into the course and are applicable, students look at chemistry with an eye for where does it seem like a certain feature has the hallmarks of design or an intelligent agent. And so, for example, when students were studying in one of their units about the properties of water and various properties related, like viscosity, surface tension, specific heat capacity, and so forth, water has very interesting and unique properties, and they're well suited for life. And it's a very good perspective to consider. And so students read some work by an ID-friendly PhD scientist, Dr. Michael Denton, and considered those properties of water through that ID perspective. I'm trying to think another area, and actually this was also a Dr. Michael Denton connection for students. When we were studying about the electromagnetic spectrum, students considered the fact that here on Earth, we have a sun that emits the right light and the right heat and an atmosphere that permits that to be transmitted. And so again, we look at that through an ID perspective, fine tuning, if you will. Those are just two examples of what it looks like to have an ID perspective in a chemistry class.
I love it. Why do you think it's important? Now, I mean, this is a loaded question because this is your coming from your perspective. Why is it important for kids to understand the intelligent design perspective? Because they have a lot coming at them from probably their own homes and the media and all the places that they're getting information from. how does intelligent design help them make sense of the world?
So I think in your average chemistry or biology or physics textbook or college course, those are going to be taught strictly from the perspective that everything that a student knows and experiences and sees and studies is or can be explained at some point through a materialist, purely unguided, blind natural process.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's helpful for students to be equipped long before they get into those college courses that that is not always the best explanation from our day-to-day experience. So for example, students would probably agree that in our day-to-day experience, we use ID type reasoning all the time. So a detective arrives at a crime scene and they're differentiating between somebody dying from natural causes and somebody at a murder, an archaeologist is distinguishing between a rock that's been shaped through erosional processes versus a rock that has been carved into a specific arrowhead or pottery or what have you. Yeah. And so it makes sense to equip students to examine science in a similar framework and to show them that there are features within science that are better explained from our experience by an intelligent cause or by an intelligent agent.
I think this is a really powerful tool for students. You're even seeing a lot of scientists at really high levels in apologetics, regardless of where their stance is coming from, saying the exactness of the universe, it points to intelligent design. And I think that's really interesting at this point, right? Like really well-known scientists who would not be faith-based in any way are saying, well, we need to look at this.
Yeah, for sure. There's even what's even more interesting, Lisa, is there's even kind of scientists that would be non-friendly to ID that describe features that we see in biology, for example, in ways that clearly they will describe it as appearing designed.
Yes.
But they'll just leave it at that, right?
Yeah.
So ID says, hey, if it looks like it's designed, maybe it was.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think it's a great, honestly, I think it takes it's just a good way for kids to understand, to have the vocabulary, to talk about science and the universe without taking a hard stand on it was just totally random to it was exactly like this. They can go, there's something at work here. We might not have a name for it if they're, or we might, but that it wasn't just random chance. And honestly, I feel like that really gives kids and people in general a more grounded sense of their own purpose in the world. I mean, I think just having worked with kids and families for decades at this point, just knowing that we're not just random matter we're going to fly off into the universe at any moment. There's a point to our life. There's purpose. Super helpful to kids.
Absolutely. I will be honest with your listeners. So I am a Christian, and I do have a perspective that, human life has value and has purpose. I'll be honest that my ID perspective didn't lead to that conclusion directly, but it's very affirming and consistent with my Christian worldview. And when I think about like a passage in the Bible, like Romans 1, that says that God's invisible attributes are made clear in the things that he has made. Again, while ID reasoning hasn't led me directly to those conclusions, when I detect and I see design in some of the features that we study in life and the universe, it is consistent with the idea of a creator. And from that, as you said, Lisa, it's consistent with there being a purpose to life and the universe, as opposed to I'm just the product of a blind and guided natural process.
Exactly. And I think, honestly, from what I can see in the last couple of years, our kids are really desperate for a sense of purpose, that things have felt really chaotic to a lot of our kids since 2020. And knowing that there is a point to all of it helps them feel less anxious, that they're part of this grand design that it's not random. They're here for a point. So anyway, I'm all about ID. I think it's great work you're doing at Discovery Institute. Tell us a little bit about the mechanics of the class. Is it live? How long are the classes? How long do they meet? What kind of homework load is it? All those things.
Yes, so excited to share that. So much thought went into what this course would look like. And it's funny you mentioned just the struggle students have had post-COVID, Lisa. One of the things that weighed heavy upon me was during COVID when students were first kind of shifted into the online classroom. For many of them and for many of their teachers, it was a really difficult transition, and it wasn't always met with the most positive experience by both student and instructor.
Mhm.
And so I felt a heavy weight on me to ensure that our class didn't tank in that respect, that it didn't have the same reception. I had taught for about 7 years prior to COVID online. And so I was already pretty well versed in online education. And then prior to that, in the classroom as well. And so when I thought about this class, the first thing I realized is I wanted it to be live. I wanted us to have weekly live sessions. So this course meets twice weekly for an hour and a half. And during that time, we are going through content together. So it's a synchronous course where students are working in step with me and with their peers, unit by unit, week by week. It's also a course that I very intentionally wanted students to feel that I was accessible for help. And so I offer homework drop-in sessions for kids to come work real problems in real time. It's a course that's dynamic. So we've very intentionally offered students both the option, both options exist on the table for students to do both of them. Actually, we have wet lab options for students, and we order those kits and they get sent straight to students' homes to conduct the labs with parents, excuse me, and guardian, supervision.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting over something. Apologies, 1 second. Okay. There's also wet labs, there's also simulations. So we have a company called Labster that students can actually participate in some really high level quality online simulations and do labs that would be difficult for them to have access to those equipment and materials at home. They look at so I curate a lot of stuff from the web that I like.
Mhm.
Good high quality YouTube videos, good web resources. And then the class also has an assessment piece like any class. And so students are taking quizzes, completing those labs, turning in tests. And throughout that process, I try to, again, be very intentional that there's a lot of two-way conversation about each and every assessment. So problem by problem, students will see my comments typed up. Hey, I want you to add this in, or hey, great job. Let's go back and revise this. Hey, why don't you drop in during homework help? I think we can tweak this a little bit. I think so much knowledge happens in the revision process when students go back and look what they were thinking and then they tweak that.
Yeah.
So that's just a little bit about what the class looks like. It really is dynamic.
Nice. And do they get a grade at the end of it? Like, is it transcribable? Colleges will accept it, all those things.
Great question. So Discovery Institute is not a credit-bearing institution. I do, at the end of the course, I do provide a grade, if you will, for the course. It's our understanding that the parent is ultimately the final authority, and they can use whatever grade I provided and adjust as they choose. But no, we're not a credit-bearing institution.
Okay. But it sounds like it's going to be a full credit class. I mean, you're going to have 120 plus hours of work with 90 times 2, 3 hours of in-person and then labs and things like that. So it sounds like a full credit class for high school. It's going to meet high school requirements for chemistry.
I would definitely say so. Again, having taught in the public school arena prior to this,
Yeah.
I would definitely say that the course covers all the fundamentals that you would want for a
Mhm.
high school chemistry course. And then, like I said, just adds in that really cool ID piece.
Yeah. Super exciting. What's your favorite thing you're looking forward to most about teaching this class?
Ooh, so having just gone through year one, I think one thing personally that I really get a lot of satisfaction out of and look forward to is breaking that intimidation piece of chemistry apart.
Mhm.
I recall being a student
Yeah.
myself, you know, and I
Yeah.
recall feeling a little bit intimidated in general in the maths and the sciences. And I've shared with my students getting pretty good at pretending that I got it when I
Mhm.
didn't.
Yeah.
And I think a major motivator and something I really look forward to in teaching chemistry is, how do I make this science accessible?
Mm.
How do I make a student feel less threatened by chemistry and less intimidated? And there's so many tricks that one can pass on to your students to equip them for it.
Mhm.
I just really enjoy that aspect of teaching the class.
I love it. I love it. I really think the hard sciences, especially homeschoolers and people who are looking at alternative education, we need to not shy away from it, not be afraid of it, dive in, outsource to experts like Kristin, and help your kids really get a hold of these hard sciences, because there's so much research and tech and discovery going on right now. Exciting fields if you can get the hard science down.
I second that. I really do. And in fact, I really love your word outsource, Lisa.
Mhm.
If I was a homeschool parent and I was tasked with covering every different high school subject matter, let's keep in mind that most high school teachers, they specialize in
Right.
which subject area that they want to be proficient in. I
Right.
think it's asking a huge amount,
Yeah.
to have to accomplish all of that at home on your own for every subject. I think outsourcing is a brilliant way. And of course, we hope that you choose us, a hands raised. We love to teach chemistry, but I absolutely agree with you, Lisa. I think there's really something to the concept of outsourcing in the homeschool arena.
Yeah, yeah. And I do think a subject matter expert can really be the game changer for your kids. I remember being super intimidated by chemistry, because the first day of class, the teacher said, you have to memorize the periodic table by next week. And if you don't have it down cold, you're going to really do terrible in this class. And that set most of us up for like, okay, wow, if we don't get this 100%, we're just doomed for the rest of the year. And it just felt like such a loss at the beginning, you know what I mean? Where I feel like just having somebody who can come in and go, here's what it is. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. This could be a game-changing class. It can make a huge difference for your kids. Yeah.
Yeah. I your story that you just shared, Lisa, I cannot tell you how many people I have run into that have shared with me that their chemistry class in particular was
Yeah.
not a positive experience from day
Mm.
one.
Right.
And so much of that was shaped by, as you said, just the tone that the instructor set for the
Mm.
course.
Yeah.
And so many times when I share that it's the subject that I intentionally chose to teach, I have people look at me baffled, like, really?
Why?
That was not what I would have chosen.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I was on the college track. I was in the honors classes. I wasn't like, I was a good student. Like I did my homework, but wow, that class, I felt really under from day one. I just never felt like I got on top of it. And it's really one of my worst memories of high school is chemistry. So I hate to say that because I feel like it is such a fascinating subject. And thankfully, my kids, we did have some great resources to outsource to. They literally love chemistry. They know so much amazing information about the world because of a simple high school chemistry class. And again, high school classes are pretty foundational. You're going to learn the basic vocabulary of a subject. Most of our high schoolers aren't going to be subject matter experts by the end of a high school course, but giving them the vocabulary of chemistry can really set them up for success in so many fields right now. And again, with the high pace of tech, I mean, I'm just thinking of SpaceX because I met somebody whose kid works for them. Wow, they need chemists and engineers and hard scientists. Why wouldn't your kid be one of them? Do you know what I mean? Like just a great
Oh,
class could set them up for that.
for sure. And actually, I totally should have mentioned this, Lisa. One really cool component to the class that I think encourages and inspires kids to go on,
Yeah.
like you're saying, in maybe a professional sense or an academic sense, The class does include some guest lectures by PhD
Oh,
scientists that are ID friendly. And
wow.
so just yesterday, look at me, I'm so excited about the class, I forget things that we do.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, we had Dr. Brian Miller, who again, PhD scientist, very ID friendly, come talk with students yesterday about basically some of the same chemistry principles that they've been learning. Things
Wow.
like entropy and enthalpy and Gibbs free energy, which that's freaking everybody out. I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
but I promise you we go through
Yes.
those in the class. And then he used those concepts to have students think about origin of life research, namely the idea that like, how probable is it that life could arise from non-life, that kind of
Mhm.
chemical molecules could eventually become a first life form, a first cell.
Yeah.
And so that is such a unique way to
Yeah.
inspire students, is that they get to sit in the audience
Yeah.
of an established PhD scientist and
Yeah.
hear about them and their understanding of the field that the students are studying in the class.
Yeah.
So cool. Such
Yeah.
a unique thing that they could do that yesterday.
I love it. That is so exciting. Well, you're really reimagining education by using tech to bring resources to kids they otherwise wouldn't have access to. And I'm super excited to let people know about the Discovery Institute for one and your chemistry class. Kristin, what a great resource you're providing. I'm so grateful. And we'll put links for you guys to find Kristin and the Discovery Institute and the chem class in the show notes. So if you have any questions that you have for Kristin, you can leave them in the comments or reach out to us and we will get them to Kristin. And I know she'd be happy to answer those for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa.
Kristin, thanks for coming. This has been so fun. And like I said, it's been delightful to get to know Discovery Institute a little bit more. We were already familiar with it because I live with the science nerd. So he's all about these places, and Discovery Institute is definitely on his radar because you guys are doing some phenomenal work. So thank you for the effort you're doing to just make the world a better place.
Hey, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be on the show, Lisa. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, you guys, thanks for listening. This has been another episode of It's Not That Hard to Homeschool. It really isn't that hard, and we know that you can do it. We will talk to you next time, everybody. Take care.